Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to the channel. This is me Arusha Bakhtabar, your host, and today I am going to walk you through a Kaggle competition I recently participated in. So let's dive in. Imagine you are a business traveler. You have just typed in your destination and dates, and now you are staring at a screen with dozens, maybe even hundreds of flight options, different airlines, different prices, different times. What makes you finally click book now on that one specific flight? That's the exact question at the heart of a fascinating machine learning competition I recently participated in, the Flight Rank 2025 Aero Club Rexis Cup. Today, I am going to walk you through what this competition is all about and how to tackle this challenge. So, what is this competition? In simple terms, the goal is to build an intelligent model that can predict which flight a business traveler will choose from a list of search results. And why is this important? Business travel is complex. Unlike booking a vacation where price might be the biggest factor, a business traveler has to juggle corporate travel policies, tight meeting schedules, and personal convenience. A good communication system can cut through the noise, show the most relevant options first, and make the entire booking process faster and less stressful. For travel platforms, this means happier customer and higher booking rates. The core challenge here is what is known as the group-wise ranking problem. For every search our user makes, we get a group of flight options. Our model does not just need to say if a flight is good or bad, it needs to rank all the options in that specific group from the most likely to be chosen to least likely. The competition is judged on a metric called hit rate at 3. This simply measures how often our model places the actual flight the user chose within its top 3 predictions. A score of 1 would mean we got it in the top 3 every single time. Now let's talk about the data. The organizer provided a massive dataset to work with. The main files are train.parquet and test.parquet. There was also an optional and enormous 50 GB archive of raw JSON files for those who wanted to do some deep level feature engineering. The main training data contains millions of rows, where each row is a single flight option from our search session. It is packed with information including user information, route and timing, pricing, flight details, company policies, and things like that. The dataset is so large that you can't just load it into memory on a standard machine. For my project even, it was crucial to start my session on a high memory environment like a Kaggle TPU. Otherwise the notebook would crash before I could even begin. Okay, here we are in our notebook. The first part is just a markdown cell that sets the stage. This is a summary of the project. It explains that we are building a ranking based recommendation system for corporate level and why is it needed. It's a good practice to start any notebook with a clear objective. It helps anyone reading the code, including my future self, to immediately understand the goal and what's actually happening. I am defining the problem as a supervised ranking task grouped by ranker ID and stating that the goal is to rank the chosen flight as high as possible. I also define the evaluation metric hit rate at 3, which is a key to knowing how we will be judged. Alright, the very first code block. What is it? This is a shell command to install the LightGBM library. And why we need this? LightGBM is a machine learning library I have chosen for my baseline model. It is a powerful and efficient gradient boosting framework that has a special mode of ranking the problems. Before we can import it, we have to make sure it's already installed in our environment. The pip install command tells the notebook to run a command line instruction to download and install the LightGBM package from Python package index. Next up, we import all the tools we will need for our project. This block is where we import all the Python libraries we will use throughout this notebook. And why is this needed? Think of this as gathering all your ingredients before you start cooking. We need to load these libraries into our session's memory so we can call their functions later. It keeps the code organized. Now let's see what is happening line by line. We import pandas, the absolute workhorse for data manipulation in Python, and give it the alias PD. This lets us interact with the operating system, which is useful for finding our data files. And next, import GC. This is the garbage collector. I use it to manually free up memory, which is crucial for a large dataset like this. Next, import LightGBM as LGB. Here we import the LightGBM library we just installed, giving it a short name LGB. Import NumPy as npvo import NumPy for efficient numerical operations, especially on arrays. From sklearn.model selection import group shuffle split. This is a very important one. It is a specific tool from scikit-learn that helps us split our data into training and validation sets while respecting our ranker ID groups. This next small block is a quality of life improvement. What is it? It's a configuration setting for pandas. And why we need this? By default, if a data frame has many columns, pandas will hide some of them in the middle with an ellipsis. This can be annoying when you want to see all your data. That's why first I reset my existing display settings to their default. Then I set the maximum number of columns to display to none, which tells pandas to always show all the columns no matter how many they are. Now we need to locate our data files within the Kaggle environment. This is a helper function I wrote called prepare underscore Kaggle underscore dataset. And why we need this? In a Kaggle notebook, your data is always in a specific input directory. This function helps to programmatically find that path and list the available files, making the code cleaner and more portable. I define the path where the Kaggle stores the competition data. I add a print statement to show the files found, which is a nice check to ensure everything is where it should be. This loops walk through the directory and list every file it finds. This function returns the path to the data directory, which we will use to load the files. I call the garbage collector to clean up any unused memory. And here we just call the function, a function call. To execute the code inside the function, we just defined and stored the return data path in a variable. It's time to load the main training data. This block reads the train.parquet file into a pandas data frame. All our work depends on this data. This is a step where we bring the millions of flight records into our notebook to start working on them. This is a key line. I use pandas read underscore parquet function to load the training data. Parquet is a very efficient file format for large datasets, much faster than CSV, and cleaning up again right after the load. This next function is a lifesaver for large dataset. And what is it? It is a function called reduce underscore memory underscore usage that automatically shrinks the size of the data frame in the memory. And why we need this? Pandas often loads numbers in a format that takes up more memory than necessary, like float 64 or int 64. This function checks each column and safely downcast it to a smaller, more efficient type, which can cut memory usage by more than half. Now let's see what's happening. We define the function which takes a data frame as input. It loops through every column in the data frame. If the column is a 64-bit float, it tries to downcast it to a smaller float type like 32-bit, and similarly it downcasts large integers to small integer types. If the column is text, it checks if it has a low number of unique values. If so, it converts it to a category type, which is much more memory efficient than storing duplicate strings. Finally, it returns the optimized data frame. And here we apply that function to our training data. We overwrite our train data frame with a new memory optimized variant. I call .head to display the first 5 rows. This is a classic sanity check to make sure the data loaded correctly and to get a first look at the columns. I create a raw copy of the loaded data. This is a good safety measure. If I mess up my main train data frame during experimentation, I can always restore it from this copy without having to reload the huge file from the disk. Now we move into the first step of preprocessing, selecting columns and sampling the data. The block defines a list of the columns I want to keep and a function to create a smaller subset of the data. This full dataset has many columns, and for a baseline, I don't need all of them. Selecting a subset simplifies the problem. The load underscore subset function is for prototyping. It lets me run my entire workflow on a small sample like 1 million rows to test things quickly. I manually create a Python function containing the names of all the columns I think are relevant to my first model. I define a function that takes a data frame, a list of columns, and an optional max underscore rows. If a number for max underscore rows is provided, it returns only that many rows from the top of the data frame. If not, it returns all the rows but still only the selected columns. Here I execute the function to create my main working data frame df underscore train using my list of columns and limiting it to the first 1 million rows for this initial run. Now we get to the fun part, feature engineering. We start with fixing the data types. A function to correct the data types of the columns that were loaded as the generic category type. My reduce underscore memory underscore user function turned many columns into the category to save the space. However, some of these are actually numbers or booleans. We need to convert them to their proper types so we can perform mathematical operations on them. Here we apply the functions and make a few manual adjustments. We run the function on our data frame. I explicitly convert the nationality column to a string because even though it might look like a number, it's a categorical code. And I ensure company ID is treated as a category as it is an identifier. Finally, I print the data types of all the columns to confirm everything is correct. This is the heart of our feature engineering. This one big function will create all of our new powerful features. A comprehensive function that takes the clean data frame and adds many new columns based on the existing data. By creating features like is weekend or price per duration, we are giving the model explicit signals that can help it better understand the user preferences. This is often the most impactful part of the machine learning project. So what is happening section by section? First, I convert all date columns to a proper date time format. Then I extract features like the day of the week, the hour of the departure, and calculate days to departure by subtracting the request date from the departure date. The duration columns are strings like 10:30 in quotation marks. I create a helper function 2 hours to convert this into a single number like 10.5 hours, which the model can understand. Here I count how many connection segments a flight has to create a num underscore stops feature. A flight with 0 stops is a direct flight. I create ratios like text ratio and price per duration. These features help the model understand value and context, not just absolute numbers. And this is one of the most important for ranking. For each flight, I calculate the average, max, mean, and standard deviation of key features within its own search group. This creates features like total price at the rate different from average, which tells the model if a flight is cheap or more expensive than the other options the user is seeing at that moment. I make sure Boolean columns are the bold type, and then I use pd.factorize to convert all my categorical string columns like airline codes into numbers. The model can't handle raw text, so this is a necessary step. Finally, I drop all the original columns that I have replaced with new features to keep the data frame clean and avoid redundancy. Any missing values that were created during this process are filled with -1. After defining that huge function, we apply it to our training sample and then we do the exact same process for the test data. Load it, reduce memory, fix types, and apply the feature engineer function. It's critical that the test data receives the exact same transformations as the training data. Okay, by now our data is fully prepped. Now we need to get it ready for the LightGPM model. This section defines our target and feature column, splits the data for validation, and creates special LightGPM dataset object. We need to explicitly tell the model which columns it should try to predict, like the target columns, and which columns it should use to make the predictions, the features, and how the data is grouped for the ranking task. What is happening here? I store the names of the target and the group columns in the variables for easy access. I create my final list of feature columns by taking all columns except for the identifiers and the target. I create a list of my categorical feature names. LightGPM can handle these directly if you tell it which ones they are, and which is very powerful. I loop through my categorical columns and explicitly set their type to category in the data frame. This is the format LightGPM expects. I initialize the group shuffle split. I set it to create one split with 20% of the data used for validation. This line performs the split, ensuring that all rows for any given ranker ID end up in either the training set or the validation set, but not both. This prevents data leakage. I create my final training and validation sets, X for features and Y for target. This is a crucial for ranking. I calculate the size of each group, how many flight options are in each ranker ID, and store these counts in an array. The model needs this to know where one search session ends and the next begins. Finally, I create the special lgb.dataset object. This is a data structure highly optimized for LightGPM. I pass it the features, the labels, the group sizes, and the list of categorical features. I do the exact same thing for my validation set. Before we train our model, we need to find the best settings or hyperparameters. This section does that. A simple grid search to test different combination of the model parameters The performance of a model is highly dependent on its settings, like learning rate and num leaves. A grid search automates the process of trying out different combinations and finding the one that performs best on our validation data. Here I define a dictionary with the parameters I want to test and the values I want to try for each. This code generates all the possible combinations from my grid. The code is set up to loop through each combination, but for this demo, I am just running the last one. This is where the training happens. I pass the parameters and data sets. Sets a high limit for training rounds, but next line is key. This is the early stopping callback. It monitors the performance on the validation set and will automatically stop the training if the score doesn't improve for 50 consecutive rounds. This prevents overfitting and saves time. After training, I get the best score that was achieved on the validation set. I check if the score is the best one I have seen so far, and if so, I save the model and its parameters. Now that we have our best parameters and we know the ideal numbers of training rounds from early stopping, we can train our final models on that data. This section prepares the full training dataset and trains one final model. Validation sets are for tuning. Once we are done tuning, we want our model to learn from as much data as possible. So we combine our training and validation sets back together. I train the final model. Notice here I am not using a validation set or early stopping. Instead, for num underscore boost underscore round, I use best underscore model dot best underscore iteration. This is the exact number of rounds where our model performed best during the validation. So we are training the new model for that optimal duration. The last step, we have our final trained model. Now we just need to use it to make predictions on the test data and create our submission file. A series of steps to predict, rank, and format the test data for submission. This is the whole point of the competition, to produce a submission file in the exact format the rule requires. First, I select the same feature columns for my processed dataset. Test dataset, I use the final model to predict our score for each row in the test set and store those scores in a new column called YPRED. This is a key step. I sort the entire test data frame first by the group rank ID and then by the predicted score in the descending order. This puts the highest scored flight at the top of each group. This line does the actual ranking. After sorting, this assigns a sequential number starting from 0 to each row within its group. I add 1 to make the rank starts from 1 instead of 0. I create the final submission data frame selecting only the 3 columns required by the competition: ID, ranker ID, and our newly created rank in the selected column. I save the data frame to a CSV file named submission.csv. Index is equal to false is important to prevent pandas from writing an extra column within the data frame index. Otherwise, the submissions will not get completed. Finally, I print the head and tail of the submission file to do one last visual check that it looks correct. And that's a complete walkthrough of the baseline notebook. We went from loading the data to extensive feature engineering to training our ranking model and finally to generating our submission file. The next step is to analyze these results and think how we can improve. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss the next video in this series. Thanks for watching.